The Medical Marijuana Guide, Cannabis and Your Health, by Patricia Frye, MD, with Dave Smitherman. Narrated by Pamela Almond. Introduction. In 1996, California became the first state in the United States to legalize cannabis for medical use. I was practicing pediatrics at a large health maintenance organization in the southern part of the state. There was probably something about it in the news. I think that was the extent of my awareness. I never gave it another thought. Until 2015. Now back on the East Coast and still holding on to my coveted California medical license, I decided to look for some light, part-time telemedicine work. I took my license out of retirement mode and farmed out my curriculum vitae. The first solicitation I received was regarding a pediatric job in San Diego. I explained to the headhunter that I was licensed in California, but physically in the Washington, D.C. metropolitan area, and was not interested in relocating. I would only consider a telemedicine job, perhaps an urgent care or aftercare position. A few days later, I received another email. It emphatically reassured me that this was a telemedicine job with a new company based in San Francisco. Great. I am interested and excited. As I am reading, looking for the particulars, it goes on to state that the job is to evaluate patients via telemedicine for medical marijuana evaluations. Screech? What? Marijuana? I don't know anything about marijuana. I tried it a few times in high school and twice as a freshman in college. It made me either goofy, sleepy, or paranoid, so I never thought much of it. I certainly never understood why my peers liked it so much. So here I am, faced with an opportunity to work a few hours a week from my home office with patients in California, and I knew nothing about the plant, how it worked, what it was good for, the possible side effects, or how it was dosed. I knew nothing. Not being one to run from a challenge, I decided to investigate. I interviewed with the president and director of operations. They were clean-cut, well-spoken, friendly, organized, and professional, not the sleepy-eyed counterculture stereotypes one might imagine. It was a brand-new company, and except for their chief medical officer, I was their first medical hire. I spent the next few days reading the California Board of Medicine's guidelines on what conditions qualified, and their assurances that I would not get into trouble making these recommendations, via telemedicine no less. I started to review the illnesses and conditions that were on their list and began a PubMed search on cannabis and its role in alleviating the symptoms associated with these conditions. PubMed is an online database of journal articles from the National Institute of Health Library. I searched for marijuana, and lo and behold, there were more than 34,000 articles on the subject. Cannabinoids yielded more than 10,000, and endocannabinoid turned up more than 11,000. I started reading and eventually enrolled in an online course on medical cannabis. I attended whatever conferences I could. Armed with a cheat sheet and a strong internet connection, I began my journey into the field of cannabis medicine. Over the course of the year, I evaluated approximately 3,000 patients. My California patients came from all walks of life and all ages. There were college professors, truck drivers, professional chefs, software developers, doctors, computer programmers, housewives, actors, small business owners, attorneys, students, and retired grandparents. They shared with me the reasons they used cannabis, how they used it, when they used it, and how much. I learned about applying salves topically to ease migraine or arthritis pain, and how to steep cannabis tea or milk to sip through the day to improve its pain-relieving effects. Cancer patients with inoperable tumors that had resolved with cannabis use shared their stories. Anxiety patients would carry a vape pen that they could use in case of a panic attack. Patients with sleep problems were getting the best sleep ever by taking a few drops of cannabis oil at bedtime. And one of the most important things I learned from my patients was how they used cannabis without getting stoned. They could treat their symptoms with no mental impairment. I didn't know that was possible. It was an invaluable education. We know that there may be long-term consequences for recreational users or patients who self-medicate or who use high doses of cannabis over an extended period of time. But these were patients who were using low to moderate doses of cannabis over many years and who were motivated, functioning successfully, and benefiting from its pain-relieving, muscle-relaxing, anti-anxiety, and mood-stabilizing benefits. There were patients who, much to many people's surprise, had cancers that were no longer detectable, and pain patients who were no longer on opiate medication and were managing their pain with just medical cannabis. At the end of that year, I thought to myself, this plant is pretty amazing, and more people, patients, and healthcare providers should know about it. It was then that I decided to call the plant by its scientific name and to drop the term marijuana, which had been used to stimulate fear and racial bigotry in an effort to make it illegal for financial and political reasons. There are a lot of books on the market about cannabis, the science and the medicine. Some are geared more for doctors and scientists, some for patients or consumers, and some for the horticulturalists and processors. There is even more on the internet, much of it geared toward people who use it for THC's intoxicating effects, but some sites with a more medical focus. There is some very sound information, and other information not so much. When researching cannabis, it is important to remember that most people who blog or comment about cannabis can only speak for how it affects them. They don't have the experience of evaluating thousands of people, so their perspective is limited and may not pertain to you and how your body may respond. Around the world, there has been a resurgence in the use of traditional herbal medicines. In Japan and Taiwan, Kampo, a Japanese variation of traditional Chinese medicine, is fully integrated into the healthcare system. By 2010, approximately half of the medical doctors in Japan were incorporating herbal medicine into their practice. More than 70% of German physicians prescribe herbs. People are looking for safer and more natural approaches to health and well-being, and cannabis is at the forefront of that movement. Cannabis has been used medicinally for 5,000 years. It has been an illegal substance for only 75 years. Are there risks to using cannabis? A few, but none that are life-threatening. The reasons to make it and keep it illegal at the federal level are not based on science or medicine. There are socio-political factors that have kept this very complicated and mostly beneficial plant in the juke joints, back alleys, rock concerts, and college dorms. This book is written for the patient who has never considered using medical cannabis as a treatment alternative, and for the healthcare provider who has never considered discussing medical cannabis with their patients. It is my hope that, after reading this book, providers, even those who are not able to make official recommendations for their patients, and patients who would otherwise not even think about the use of medical cannabis, will be more comfortable having the discussion and making an informed decision on whether cannabis might help them. If you decide that cannabis might be worth a try, read, ask questions, start low, and go slow as you explore the healing properties of this ancient medicinal plant. Chapter 1. History of Cannabis. The journey from medicine to intoxicant and back again. There was a time when American doctors were able to write prescriptions for cannabis extracts, called tinctures, and salves to treat ailments like migraines, parasites, seizures, pain, and melancholy. It was not a perfect medicine. Dosing could be challenging because no one knew exactly why or how it worked.